Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over.
The intention of Islam is to be fruitful and multiply, and in many cases, they are obviously being taught and trained to believe in Islam. However, the more extreme version of it, which is to impose this Sharia law, can change a country at its core. Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I'm dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a very sensitive topic, and it's basically how Christian nations are actually becoming more and more Muslim. So it's an interesting thing, this Islamification, which is coming from truly a lot of migration or sometimes illegal immigration. It's really a mind blow, but it's worth discussing with a Catholic perspective in a way that's not going to make anybody mad or start pushing out Islamophobia, but at the same time protecting people who might experience, anti-Jewish sentiment or even anti-Catholic sentiment. So we've got to have a place where we can have these conversations without a lot of motivation to divide, but rather to bring people together. So if you haven't done so, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. And as always, we can only do this work if people are willing to support us on Patreon. So you can join us at every possible level on Patreon, but for those who are supporters, you obviously get some special perks as well as get access to the commentary that I'm going to offer at the end of this episode. So let's just jump right into it now with this clarification regarding the Catholic faith and how it's decreasing and almost being overtaken by the Muslim faith. This topic came about simply because I got some pretty disturbing news, and that is that a historic Catholic church in Buffalo will now be converted into a mosque following a controversial sale. And it's really challenging. St. Anne's Catholic Church is permanently closed and sold to the Islamic community for only $250,000, and they're going to convert it into a mosque. And what's just sad about this is that when you look at this church, it really kind of captures the beauty of our Roman Catholic heritage, the beauty of our culture from the inside. And unfortunately, this has happened in the past, and it wasn't necessarily for the good. So, for example, the Christian church, the Greek Orthodox Church known as the Hagia Sophia, the Holy Wisdom, in 360 AD was built, and it's a very Byzantine style, beautiful, beautiful basilica at one point. And at one point it was even assumed by the Latin Catholic Church during the Crusades in 1261. But then it became a mosque after the fall of Constantinople in 1453. It became a mosque. And so now it's a museum. And when you actually go into a place like that, it's a little disturbing because you actually see vestiges of Christianity, but you can also see how faces of saints are removed. And so we have to ask ourselves as Catholics, what does this all mean? And what is the relationship between Catholicism, which is the most orthodox historical Christianity? And I know there's going to be a lot of people, and maybe we'll have an episode about that, of how even non-Catholic Christians don't think that Roman Catholics are truly orthodox, true believers of Jesus. This world is pretty messed up. I mean, people just don't know how to read anymore. But what is the relationship between the Roman Catholic, most orthodox fullness of teaching Christianity and Islam? Well, I kind of want to direct you to the fact that while we are all considered cousins as monotheistic religions, people who profess the faith of profess faith in the God of Abraham, who is the one supreme God, they're technically the Jews, the people of the law, and then Christians who are considered the people of the Son of God incarnate, and then Muslims or Islam, because we are in a sense all monotheistic religions. We believe in only one God. We're not pantheists. We don't believe that everything is God. But what is the relationship, knowing that at least for Christians and Jews there is a greater similarity in understanding the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And the difference between Jews and Christians is that the Jews are waiting for the Messiah. They do not think that Jesus is the Messiah, although so many supportive accounts from the Old Testament point to Jesus, the quality of the man God who is Jesus. Islam, however, is very different. They have vastly different concepts of God. And while Vatican II affirmed that together with Muslims, this is Lumen Gentium 16, Muslims adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day, it also confirms that Allah tells his prophet Muhammad to say the people of the book, that is the Jews, Christians, and a few other groups who are considered to receive a genuine revelation from Allah, our Father, God is one. So there is some semblance that there is a unity, that we believe in the one true merciful God. But since it denies the Trinity, and they actually think that Christians now are polytheistic because we believe Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that it denies that Christians are really believers in a way. And there are many other differences, including understanding how Allah is not the Father of Jesus, because they don't believe in the incarnation. They don't believe that God should become incarnate. So if Jesus becomes incarnate and claims to be God, then Jesus' Father is not the one true God. It's not Allah. And so there's a real theological difference, and they believe that Allah is also the source of all good and evil. As Catholics, God is not the source of evil. Evil is just evil. Evil is permitted, unfortunately, by God, simply because God provides freedom. And so freedom is something that Muslims do not agree with the Christian understanding of freedom. Let's put it that way. That's why there are many rules and restrictions. And you can see that Catholics are kind of free to do a lot of things, like, say, eat pork and drink alcohol. Muslims don't have that. And they believe that pork and alcohol are considered evil. They're not halal. They're not holy in how it's procured and how it's made. And there's also a lot of shortcomings in terms of, say, Islam's morality. But really, what we're seeing, however, is a real sad state of affairs, especially when it comes to how to interact with Muslims who are coming into a country, say like a Christian country, such as France, such as Spain, such as Italy, and even England. And we all know what's been happening in England. And so what I want to do is make a commentary, because I think people are confusing what's happening in England with all of the protests and riots with possible anti-Islamic sentiment. And these are completely different things. And so what I want to do is dive a little bit more deeply into the culture so that we can talk about what exactly is happening. Because while there are instances of Muslims outpacing Christians, what does this all mean, and how is culture taking it? We know that there is a ton of there are so many riots happening right now around the world. I've never, in my 50 plus years of living, I've never seen so many riots happening around the world. And oftentimes it is related to mass illegal immigration. And let me be clear, I am all for immigration. I am an immigrant myself to America. And whenever I go to a country and I travel a lot, I always have to have documentation. But there is, almost in a sense, a planned approach for mass illegal immigration. People are being encouraged and to some degree even paid and supported to bring people from one country into another country, and in particular, Christian countries. Countries that have a culture of Christianity. It might not be Catholic like, say, Spain, France, and Italy, but England did start off as a Catholic nation until the King, Henry VIII, decided to kind of end it and create a new religion of Anglicanism, or Anglicans and Episcopalians, say, like for an American, who are kind of rooted in that tradition. And so there is a real sad confusion when it comes to immigration. I am all for legal immigration. I am completely 1000% against anyone coming into another country the improper way. And oftentimes it is planned. It's created. This problem of illegal mass immigration is very planned. It's created in order to create havoc. And havoc was certainly created when 3 young children were fatally stabbed to death, while 8 other children were seriously wounded, along with 2 other adults, when someone stabbed and killed these 3 children at a Taylor Swift concert. What these headlines don't say is that it was done by someone who was in this country illegally and happened to be not a Christian, in fact, Muslim. There is a real sad state of affairs where there are even groups who are harassing people who might be wearing a cross, including this happening in the UK.
Yeah.
What, it's a Christian country. It's a Christian country. Yes, it is. This is a Christian country.
You're jealous that we're taking over?
You're not taking over. No.
Why are we jealous you're taking over?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you taking over? How are you taking
Yeah,
over?
mate. We've got it, mate. We've got it.
You've got it. Is that what you
Loving
think?
it here.
You might have
But you've got people scared. You don't have us scared.
No,
No. You think you can take over town and tell us that it's your country? You've taken over. Not for long. See this cross? This will prevail.
She had a Muslim symbol, you wouldn't say anything?
It's really quite disturbing, honestly, to see that someone who professes to be a person of faith, say like a Muslim, kind of creating a row with someone just because they're wearing a cross. Now, I don't know the full backstory of that little confrontation, but I can see it got very ugly very quickly, and faith was immediately brought in, but also a uniqueness in culture. And it's kind of sad because when you look at, say, a Muslim country, it's very different. I mean, I travel a lot, and I have been to a lot of predominantly Muslim countries in the Middle East. And it is a different feel altogether. Say, in the Western Christian nations, you feel a great sense of welcome, even some support. You know, again, in Rome, for example, they had quarters, they had areas where people can at least be Jewish, you know. And then when obviously during, for example, the Battle of Lepanto, you saw how there was truly a battle between the Ottomans and Christians, Muslims and Christians. And I guess it's really sad because you see how there is almost a push to overtake Christianity, including people saying that if Muslims come, they are going to impose Sharia law. So listen to this little clip about Sharia law.
In the Quran, chapter number 9, verse number 29,
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Muslims to kill the Christians, Jews, and if they do not surrender, then they have to pay jizya. Jizya is basically protection money.
Yeah, there's a bigger clip of that, and I watched it. I'm just giving you a little summary of it, that the intention for Muslims is not just simply to migrate to a new country, but in a sense to Islamicize it, to make it an Islamic nation. And therefore they can impose a Sharia law. And the Sharia law basically gives Muslims permission to tax Christians from being, or any other person who's not a Muslim, from being attacked. And if there is this jizya principle, so that they can be protected, but they have to still convert to Islam. If not, there can be some serious consequences. And you actually hear people talking about this, not just in, say, the UK, but even to our northern neighbors. Listen to this.
What would happen to a gay couple in Palestine, sir?
What?
What would happen to a gay couple in Gaza?
Executed according to Islamic law. Islam doesn't endorse gayism. Islam doesn't endorse homosexuality.
Do you think that's good, sir? Do you think it's good for gays?
Islam doesn't approve of being gay.
I see. Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will. You know, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump.
That's
Right?
Yeah.
And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, your research, by 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over.
Right.
What are you going to do then?
Actually,
to oppose Sharia is even then?
well, you know what? I'm very appreciative of the honesty. We don't usually get that. So you do support Sharia.
Just like you had a Muslim, a Western majority nation in a land of Native Americans, one day we can have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada.
So those are our northern neighbors. And we do know that there are even places in America now where you can't go to it and almost recognize the culture of that country. It is, in a sense, being taken over. And this man, as honest as he is, tells us something quite shocking. And he tells us that the intention of Islam is to be fruitful and multiply. That's certainly a godly principle. Christians aren't having babies. Jews are having some babies, but not really, because they actually have kind of a more flexibility, especially more liberal Jews. So they're not having a lot of kids, but Muslims are. They're having a lot of children. And in many cases, they are obviously being taught and trained to believe in Islam. However, the more extreme version of it, which is to impose this Sharia law, can change a country at its core. And I'm just grateful that there are at least some balanced Muslim people, including this woman, who kind of wants to make a claim that if you're going to come to England, then you're going to have to take on their culture, not change it. Which is so interesting, which is why in the next section, in the culture commentary, in my commentary about how Catholics can kind of survive all of this, and this is exclusively for our Patreon members. And remember, you can join Patreon at every level possible. We just want to know who the people are who really are engaged in our content. So make sure you go to patreon.com/The Father Leo Show and join us on Patreon so you can get access to my follow-up commentary. But now I want to just get insights from this woman who wants to again affirm that migration, like me, I agree with her, it's fine. But if you are going to migrate to another country because you have left the other one out of fear or, fleeing for a better opportunity, then guess what? Leave that country behind and be a real part of the country you want to join or you want to move to or live in. But that's not happening. And this woman, she's at least honest, will prove it.
I mean, from my point of view, what politicians doing, everything is doing, I think there is a big responsibility of the Muslim community in that, because we have tried to change the British that, you have that, something about Britain. It is totally different now. It's nothing like Britain before. It's everybody's like doing their own thing and they want to adapt everything. So this country's own culture has disappeared. And I think this is something that needs to come back if we want to be, feeling the important. Because, if the British society changed to other countries' rules and religious expectation and everything, then you cannot expect the Britain politicians to be British to you.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So you think Britain has been too accommodating almost?
Yes, it is. And I think this multicultural, everything coming into it has made it like the society has changed to everybody's adaptations. Like everybody's doing their own thing, schools and everything, they're like having different kind of holidays. Everybody's having different kind of, their own adaptations. And I think, if you go to Tower Hamlets Council and you want to speak to someone about, before I would go to council and I would see that they would expect it and they understand me. But now they will be like, oh, in your culture it happens, so adapt to it.
Right.
That's what you get.
Wow. She kind of hit it on the head. If you're going to be going into the British culture, then celebrate the British culture. Don't change it. You can bring something to it, but you've got to go to the roots of that culture. And what is the roots of that healthy culture? It's Christianity. So here's where I'm going to leave you all now, just giving you something to think about. But if you want to learn a little bit more with my commentary, make sure you go to patreon.com/The Father Leo Show. Join us at any level, and you can also get some great perks if you support us with a monthly gift. But I'm going to just sign off now. I'm going to jump onto the Patreon page, so make sure that you check that out for my commentary. And in the meantime, God bless you and stay hungry for God.